Well, everybody knows the Zimbabwean voice now, so that's for sure. And it's a beautiful voice, that one. One of unity, one of togetherness, one of peace, one of love, you know. That's the way forward. Oga, Oga.
Paida, Cindy, thank you so much for your time, and really appreciate it. As I was just saying to Cindy earlier, when I first discovered your guys' page, must have been, I think it's 4 or 5 years ago. It's been a while ago now, and I was just so glad that this existed even as an idea. It was the content, and I think you guys. I went to Mtora Shango once, and you guys used my photo. It must have been literally 5 years ago, and I'm glad it's still going and hasn't stopped. But I wanted to kind of get the backstory around how it even came to be. So thanks for your time, and we appreciate you guys taking the time to chat.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool, but maybe before we get into Win and Zim and how you guys got into there, where are you guys right now in the world, and how have you guys been?
Been good, tired. Work is, has me in a chokehold, but very, very blessed. I'm in South Africa at the moment, so fortunately for me, I mean, the one positive thing about COVID is that I work remotely. So I was originally meant to be here for 2 weeks, and somehow I'm still here 5 months later.
Right.
But yeah, so I'm in South Africa at the moment.
Wait, you said 2 years, 5 months? You said 2 years, 5 months?
No, I was meant to be here for 2 weeks.
Okay.
2 weeks has kind of turned into 5 months, but I'm heading back to London in about 2 weeks. So yeah.
Okay. And for you, Cindy, you said you're in the UK now, yes?
Yes, I'm in the UK at the moment. Paida sold me the dream of 2 weeks. And she's just been gone. She's just been gone for a really long time.
Well, at least you guys have managed to be in comms with each other, But maybe I'll start off with you, Cindy. I want to take it back. You guys, were you? Of course, I've done a bit of my research, but I want to get to from birth. Were you guys both born? Cindy, were you born in Zim or born in the UK? Maybe let's start there. Mm-hmm.
I was born and raised in Zim, so I moved when I was 14 to the UK.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, went back and forth initially. I think when I first moved here, I went back like a good 3 or 4 times in that first year, and begged my mum to like leave me in Zim in boarding school, because I really hated the UK when I moved here.
Really?
It was not a love-hate thing. I thoroughly
you knew as a fact it wasn't a thing. Yeah.
I was like, this is not the country for me. But everyone was like, oh, because everyone's here, I have to stay, so I had to like make do. But yeah, that's how I ended up here.
Okay. I to be fair, like many Zimbabweans, I think there was a time with a lot of people moving over. In fact, you'll see most Zimbabweans all have a cousin in London or Leicester or Birmingham, or where have you. And you, Paida, was it the same kind of story, or was it a little bit different?
A little bit different. So I was born in Zim, but my mum was already based in England. So I moved to England when I was 2 weeks. And yeah.
Really?
In England, did school in England. But I used to come to Zim regularly. So every school holiday, my mum would buy me a ticket. I'd be shipped on that plane, whether it was by myself or with a chaperone, but I'd be sent to Zim every year to spend my school holidays. But always been pretty much lived in England my entire life.
And when you guys were growing up, what was the perception of Zimbabwe from British people when you guys were growing up there? Because a lot of your growing was there. So what was that like? Maybe Cindy, I'll start with you.
I feel like I've got the most vivid memories of being in high school and having a lot of people. Like the main thing I used to get a lot was, oh my God, you speak really good English for someone from Africa. That was like one of the biggest things I can get like all the time.
Yeah.
And this idea that I think guess like Zimbabwe was a very impoverished country, and everyone was kind of like dying to get out. At the time, it wasn't really at that stage of like people really kind of like, you know, when there's like the mad dash, but like a lot of people moved out. It wasn't yet at that point. So like it wasn't like as bad as people sort of like saw it as. But I just remember a lot of like my schoolmates just used to just think like we lived in huts and all this stuff and all this. Yeah, and they thought the whole country was like that. And that was the general consensus of like what Zimbabwe and just Africa as a whole was. Yeah.
And how about you, Paida? What was your take? Was it similar or slightly different?
I guess a little bit different. I went to a school that was predominantly Black, and so there was a lot of Africans, there was a lot of Caribbean. So I think in terms of the Africans, they like a lot of people from Nigeria, Ghana, or whatever. So I think there wasn't as much of that ignorance in my school in particular, but I guess with white people in general, there's always that, yeah, you live in mud huts, there's lions in your garden, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, I never really had to like explain myself in terms of, no, we actually live in proper houses. The houses are better than the houses in England. Just because, I went to a predominantly Black school. So I think, the perception.
And you're in London as well, isn't it? I was in Sheffield.
Exactly.
Right.
I was in Sheffield, and I think I was like
in North London, in the north, in Yorkshire, or is it?
Yeah, like super. And I think I was one of like maybe like 4 Black kids in my school. Like it was. I remember having to go onto Google Maps and like show people my house so that they would believe that we lived.
No, like we actually
actively go on Google Maps to show people like where I lived, like what my house was like. And it was very different to like, I think what people just imagine, because they just kind of always saw it as if like I escaped Zim as opposed to like I just moved here. Like that's what it was.
Yeah, that's fair. And where in Zim are you guys from? Are you guys both from Harare or elsewhere?
I'm from Bulawayo.
Bulawayo. Okay. And you, Paida?
My mom based in Harare.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how did you guys meet? Because you said that, Cindy said you're in Sheffield, Paida's in London. How did your courses intertwine? You know.
The same way we met you.
Really? Just like who DM'd who?
Media.
Oh,
it was social media, and it was really funny because I had always been aware of Paida, and because I remember she had a clothing line that she had before, so I was following her for like years, and I was just always like, oh, like, and I knew she doesn't mean to do like marketing, and at the time I was
like, she has a vibe. Paida has a vibe.
Yeah, and I was like, I'd like to work with her at some point.
Yes, and
then I feel like I messaged her about something to do with like Miss Zim. At the time I was working with people who were organizing Miss Zimbabwe UK. And I wanted to work with her for that. And then that just became also a bit of a madness. So that never worked out. And then I just never worked with her. And then one time I was like, I want to start going to the gym. And I tweeted it and I was like, who lives in my neighborhood who wants to go to the gym so that we can like buddy out?
Right.
And then Paida was like, I think I live in the same neighborhood. and then we literally hooked up in that way. But we spent most of our time in the gym lying down on the mats, like having a chat.
Just chatting.
Working out.
Oh, that's so good. And how long ago is this? Is this 10 years ago, 5 years ago? Or more recent than that?
I want to say our first interaction was probably like a good 15 years. It was a long time.
It's a long time.
Yeah. But I think when we actually physically met was probably maybe like, I want to say maybe like 6, 7.
Yeah, maybe about 6. Maybe like about 5 years ago, probably.
Yeah. Oh, really? Okay. Geez. Okay. Cool. What sometimes happens, like with regards to, like, I'm not similar in the sense that Zimbabwean born, and raised, but for the most part, this diaspora and existence has kind of become a norm of my life. It's my 5th country in the US now. So I lived in the UK for 4 years. So I've been going up and around for a while, right? And then what tends to happen is sometimes you never really, I was speaking to somebody earlier about this, you never think of yourself of being Zimbabwean when you know it, right? But it's not like a thing. It's just, you just are. But when you're removed from Zimbabwe, it becomes like, you become acutely aware of your identity, and then you almost have like this tension. Was that similar for you guys when you first moved to the United States, to the UK? Maybe Paida, let me know. Mm-hmm.
Was there a tension?
Well, not a tension, or maybe it could be a pride. It could be a proud, like a sense of pride, or like a ownership of identity more so. It could be anything. But was there like an acute awareness, maybe enhanced awareness?
I guess so. I think I've always, despite like the media and everything that's gone on, I've always been someone that's very, very, very patriotic. And I feel like maybe the more bad media that happened around Zimbabwe has always made me jump into like mode where I'm just not justifying, where what's the word that I'm looking for?
You're countering the narrative.
Yeah, exactly. Where I'm just trying to be like, no, Zimbabwe's got loads of fantastic places. Exactly, that whole narrative. Like, exactly. Like, you know, like if someone talks bad about your sister, like I can talk bad about my sister, but you can't.
Like that. Yeah,
exactly. So I guess I've always had that element of, whenever anything bad is said about Zimbabwe, I always have to like counter it and say, you know, we've got, and chat about my positive experiences and the beauty that Zimbabwe has, and et cetera, et cetera. So I guess, when I do have conversations, I guess that pride always comes out in that way.
And how about you, Cindy? Is it slightly similar or a bit different?
Yeah, I think it's definitely similar to that. I think because of the kind of response that I got when I moved here from like school and people like my peers, it made me very fiercely patriotic, because I had a very good childhood growing up in Zim. Like I've got no negative memories per se of the time when I grew up. In the 14 years that I was there, I've got so many great memories of growing up there, not just like personal experiences of just like, you know, like my home, but just the country as a whole. It was a place that I really, really loved. And so to kind of have this narrative of just, you know, either just being a place full of squalor or just being a place that's just not, that's like, you know, the children in AIDS, you know, like flies by the mouth, being like the only thing that kind of kept on being pushed. I felt like it was like my job as a Zimbabwean to like tell you guys that's not what the whole country is like. You
know? That's especially because you guys kind of have, from what I was doing my research, you guys both have a bit of a background in media, yes. So I think with a lot of being Zimbabwean, we only had ZBC growing up for the most part. If you're lucky, you had DSTV. So there's a lot of consuming being done, as opposed to everything that was being produced wasn't in your line of sight, if I can call it that. So with you guys, what made you say, okay, I'm in media, I've been consuming and creating, but for certain things, why, or rather, what was I think what the thinking was, but what made you say, okay, travel is the thing that we want to join forces on to showcase the beauty of Zim?
Do you want to take this one?
Okay. I mean, I think for us, we were trying to plan a trip to Zim.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm going to take my husband, who's Congolese, to go to Zim. And I was like, let's put together a trip so we can really like show Zim and like just how great it is.
Right.
So when we were looking online, we just found that we were finding accounts, and just even in general, like on Google, you were finding the same thing, which was rhinos, lions,
right,
and Ghonarezhou if you're lucky.
Yes, yeah.
Like,
It's true. It's true.
Across the board, it was the same. And because Paida and I have both traveled like to like places like in Indonesia, and you see things like the Bali Bible and stuff like that, and you're able to really curate and create your whole trip and experiences literally based off of these really simple pages that are really showcasing all that there is to do in that country as a holiday. And we thought that there's nothing like that for Zim. Everything just seemed like, because not every person wants to do a safari. That's just the reality of it. And I mean, also, how many days can you just be doing a safari?
Be on safari, yeah. You're right. No,
you know?
Yes.
And so we just kind of saw a gap in the market there, and we just thought, like, if it's not there, then let's create it. Let's create something which is going to be showcasing the other stuff that there is to do in Zim, because we're aware that it's there, but the whole world probably doesn't know that there's so many things to explore in Zim besides the Victoria Falls, which I think it's been such a crutch for Zim in terms of marketing, and it's great. Like, don't get me wrong, Vic Falls is lovely. It's amazing.
Ouch. It's true though, but it's true. You're right. It's true.
We have more.
Yeah,
right.
You know,
and we're doing a disservice to Zimbabwe just showing Victoria Falls as if it's the only thing that exists.
Oh, it's true, very true. Like, my favorite part of Zim is Vumba, really, and I've never really seen a whole lot of stuff around Vumba. I mean, I've seen a little bit with channels like yours, but before then, all you see is Vic Falls, really. So it's completely honest.
Yeah. And just I think with when in Zim, it actually brought to light how much even the locals were not aware of what's around them, because I think when we first highlighted Binga, everyone was like, "It's a beach."
Is there a beach? What? I
even my mum, who is
I had to Google
in her 70s, was like, "No way!" Like, we had to drive with my mother the whole 8 hours to prove to her that there's a beach in Zimbabwe. So yeah, I think it's highlighting to locals as well what's available, because I think sometimes we take it for granted, the things that are in our back doors. So yeah.
I was speaking to this one, she's an influencer, and she was talking to me about how Bali has been built, at least now, off influence, like it's been amplified off influences and content. And how maybe before, what was the thing was to, let's say, you take a Sawubona magazine, like in South African Airways, and we market inside there, or you put a billboard outside like an airport or whatever. But that's not the thing anymore. Like, content is the way people are engaging with particular communities.
Changed. You are the ad, essentially. So you want to go there, you want to showcase, like, guys, look where I'm staying. Like, we're focusing on, everyone's pretty much focusing on user generated content. There's no need for you to like hire models and take them somewhere and say pose here. Like, everyone wants to be, everyone just wants to have a good time. They want to take amazing pictures. So why not utilize?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
you're right. And then to talk about like how like certain tourism boards are taking out of that and actually paying people just to shoot content around coming to those. So it's just like times have changed.
Well, it's more authentic that way, isn't it? If Dumi is going somewhere and he's showcasing exactly how much he's enjoying his time, as opposed to like a media agency that have curated this with models and actors and blah blah blah, and they're like, hey, like, who am I going to believe? Who are your friends going to believe? Like,
they'll say, oh, how did you do it? And just, here's the link, this is how I did it.
Exactly.
Then it's like a dominant. So initially, when you guys began, was it a thing of, okay, we think this should just exist as a thing, or was it from the beginning? No, this should be an entity that can build an audience and turn into an enterprise. Which is how did you guys think about it in the beginning?
I think initially, as Cindy said, it was more so for like our personal use kind of thing, because even as Cindy mentioned, it was like a way of us trying to curate something for her husband. For me, on a personal level, although I used to go to Zim every year, probably like a lot of people that have grown up outside of Zim, my holidays used to be dictated by my mum. And I used to hate it. Like, I used to absolutely detest that my holidays would consist of, oh, we need to go and see Sekulu. We need to go and see we need to go and see this. And it's like, it takes away from the excitement. I love my family. Like,
however,
however, I would like to go and see the landmarks as well. So I think from a personal experience, it was like, okay, let's actually take some time to research what's about and then curate it for ourselves. And over time, it just naturally, organically just developed. We were posting pictures. People were just, like really, really mesmerized by, oh my God, is that in Zim? Is that in Zim? And it naturally just, it grew and grew.
What are the biggest things that have surprised you from this When in Zim journey, for both positively and negatively?
For me, positively, I would say it's the surprise that a lot of the locals who live in Zim and their reaction to places that we posted. I think it just always feels so much more like a win when you feel like you're like reintroducing Zimbabwe to Zimbabweans. So it's not only to kind of work as a platform for tourists, but like we're kind of reminding you that when you go to Zim now, it doesn't have to just be like, I'm just going home to see family. Like Paida is saying, like now you can be like, because I think in those situations where like you're going home and your parents are dictating the trip, 9 times out of 10 is because you don't really know where else you're going to go to. So like you don't have an alternative thing to do. So it's kind of been giving it back, like the country back to people, especially the ones who've moved here as well or moved abroad, for them to kind of see going home, not only just as going home, but you can now go to Zim as a holiday. You can plan it and have like all these activities that you can be doing. And it's been really nice to not only kind of like create that content for people who don't know the country and are not aware of Zimbabwe as a place to go to as a tourist destination, but just for Zimbabweans, for them to just really be like, oh wow, like there's like really great places to go to in Zim. Like you don't have to travel super far. You don't have to have like, I guess like a passport and like loads of money to kind of travel abroad and see some of these amazing views that we have, which we have like in Nyanga and all that kind of in Mvumba and like all the mist and all that kind of theatrics of nature. We have them in so many corners of the country. And for people who are like, especially when people get so proud and be like, oh, that's where I'm from. Like, that's my Kumisha. And it's like, it's so nice when you see that, because it's just like, people get so proud of like, like where I'm from, like, is actually like a really dope place. You grew up with it and you just take it for granted, like, as in like, you know, it's home, innit? But when you're like, oh my God, like, look at it through that person's lens and that person's experience when they went there, and they did it as a holiday, and you're like, oh my God, there's so many places to explore in Zen. So that's been a really big positive for me personally, through the page.
And you, Paida, maybe on the negative. I'm sorry to put the negative, or maybe you can touch on your positive and negative too. She must be like, what did I get?
The positive, I completely agree with what Cindy said. The negative, how honest can I be on this? I think
the negatives. I mean,
I think, Joanne, I think it's important to. Of course, you can use your discretion as best as you wish. I think sometimes every good conversation needs balance. So
of course,
sometimes like it's not all peach and daisies. Sometimes, quite honestly, it's hard to sustain this thing. We love doing it, but it's hard, you know.
I think the biggest negative for me has been, I think, the reluctance of certain organizations that are meant to be focused on tourism to want to collaborate. That to me has been a big negative, especially when, not to blow our own trumpet, but I think we have done a better job at highlighting the beauty of Zimbabwe than certain tourism organizations within Zimbabwe. But I think there's still like a reluctance, and I don't know why, to collaborate on a bigger scale. So I think,
I like that. I think that's honest. And I like that the Cindy said something very poignant, which was one of the biggest joys is reintroducing Zimbabwe to Zimbabweans. I love that, because for a lot of people it's been introduced as one thing, even if you're in there or abroad, actually, like universally, it's been introduced as one idea that's packed with many negative stereotypes. So to reintroduce to like, yeah, that's there, but there's Binga, there's Vumba, this is not even Big Falls, there's Kariba. There are all of these beautiful places that we have, and they're for you at your doorstep, for you to partake. And allowing people to actually enjoy.
A lot of the time they think that, or when you think of holiday for locals, they're automatically thinking of going abroad, and you don't have to go abroad. And I guess with the financial situation in Zimbabwe anyway, I think if we can highlight and support the locals, the local organizations, the local hotels, there's so much beauty in Zimbabwe. And I think, let's start with supporting our own and visiting our own and rediscovering our own before we step outside.
Yeah. And not to mention Big Falls as the crutch, but I was there quite recently. And I was there quite recently. Or to be fair, I've only been 3 times, but I went like a couple of years ago, and there were more Americans. I felt like I was in America in terms of the amount of tour. And the people telling me, I come every year to this part of the world. And then I go and I do a trip. I go to Wange, and people like every year for the past 30. So I was just really, I mean, I love Zimbabwe, but you take it for granted that there's some people that are on Zimbabwe that actually like seeing it more than you do, And it just made me appreciate, it was interesting to see from that different lens, the beauty of where we come from. So with regards to you guys, I don't know if how big is the right word, but what is your dream for Wen and Zim in the future? What do you guys want to envision? So that's for both of you.
So that's a big question. It's a very big question.
But you want to put it out there so that people know, what the deal is.
You know what? I think the thing is, I think it ties into actually your previous question about the negatives as well, ironically. But I think over time, we've had such big ideas for Wen and Zim and how to expand it and just so many ways that we want to impact the country and help people as well who actually are on the ground in like really practical ways. But because of how unstable it can be and how unpredictable it can be, it's made it really difficult at times to kind of move forward with certain things.
Yes, you can't plan. I think it's hard to plan.
Yeah, like I know, like I don't know, maybe you have seen like when we used to have the day trips that we used to do in Zim. Like we'd get a lot of interest in people who were abroad who wanted to do them, but with like the prices fluctuating every other day, it's difficult for you to kind of really plan it and make sure that it's going to happen on that day at that time for that price that I'm telling you now today. In 2 months' time. And I think that's definitely been like the biggest thing where it felt like a bit deflating because you feel like there's so many things you want to do and like we're like, okay, we can do this, we can do this. And then you're like, but is it feasible to do that? And that's what's been a bit of like a thorn, I think, in our backside with Wen and Zims, because there's a lot of things I would love to do in terms of like creating a lot more jobs in tourism, especially for like the average person. So people are able to earn some money with what they have available just where they are, kind of thing. But then just being able to kind of enforce those kind of things, it's just so dependent on the
factors that we can't
the external factors that we just can't fix them. And I think also one thing which like I always kind of like feel really sad about is that I just wish Zim was a lot more connected travel wise, like
roads, highways, trains.
Even more so, I think trains, to be honest, The distance in Harare and Bulawayo is like 6 hours by car. That's a long distance.
Yeah.
And I just feel like there's so many places that sometimes also do go unseen because if you don't have a car, to travel, or there's no fuel, do you have fuel to dedicate to that? If like at that time for you to travel all those hours to that place, it's things like that, which I think if those things were like addressed, the entire tourism industry in Zim could be completely flipped on its head.
Yeah.
And so so that's the little thing where it's like we have plans, but man,
trying to navigate with the
unknown, with the landscape.
Yeah.
It's a sticky. It's a. You know, I was looking at like you talked about the travel board. I was talking to someone about Ghana and how strategic they've been with like, okay, we want to partner with the African American community because they were once here 500, 400 years ago. We're going to tap into that community because they have buying power. And we're going to do the year of and the intentionality and the strategy. And now I'm like, wow, and they started doing studies around that. If one tourist brings X amount of dollars, one tourist times 10,000 tourists, what does that mean to the local? And I just, you know, I was like, man, people are really, they felt almost like discouraging where like some places are like really thinking, executing, dreaming, and empowering communities, whereas we still aren't embracing the future or embracing ideas and where, you know, the direction in which things are going. So that can be, I can imagine that being discouraging when you're kind of walking up like an uphill. It's like an uphill battle kind of thing, you know. But not hope is not lost. You guys are still doing the work, but I can imagine how that can be frustrating. Do you know what I mean? And how about you, Paida? What's your dream for, unless you're living it already, but what's your dream for, you know, when in Zim?
No, I think the same thing is just to echo exactly what Cindy said. We speak a lot every year. We've got like a massive idea for, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. But unfortunately, like there's a lot of external factors that we are not in control of that put a like stop to all of our plans. So for me, exactly as Cindy said, I'd just like to see like the infrastructure rather, the travel, how people get about addressed, because I think that will enable us to take what we want to do to the next level and just make it easier for people in general to just navigate and get around, because there's things that we take for granted, I guess, as people in the diaspora that, you can just hop in a car, you can just do a road trip, but those are actual luxuries. So, I think if we can sort out just how people get around, travel, etc., like trains, highways, roads.
That will make a big difference.
Back off that, it will make a massive difference to what we're trying to achieve in the future.
And with where you guys are at now, how can people help you? I know you guys have got like this Win in Zim tuck shop. Of course, there's like some trips that you guys are doing, you know, a while back. How can people help you now? You know, as best as they can, whether as customers or sharing content or investment, you know, I don't know, what do you guys need?
I think as most companies would always be open to investment because we have a lot of plans. So investment, I think applying a little bit of pressure on the tourism on the tourism board in Zim to collaborate.
Right.
For collaboration. We're not trying to step on anyone's toes. I think if we can work in partnership, I think that would be a massive opportunity for us to create something great for Zimbabweans in general. So I think that for me would be like something that I think is really, really pivotal if people can assist us in that department.
Apply pressure. That's what that would be great.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
Apply the pressure, and that will definitely help us a lot. I think I agree exactly the same. Like, I just think if we can because I feel like the powers that be are very aware that we're there. And I just think, not like it being like a peer pressure thing, but I feel like to a degree they need to sort of maybe hear the people saying, you know, work with them, because we want to work. It's not like like Paida saying, like, we don't want to step on people's toes, but we feel like, I think a really important thing with countries like Zim and other people who have left and gone to other places and been exposed to different things, there's so much power in that. Yeah, you know, like you've seen different ways of doing things. You've seen what works, what could be applied in this way. And I think as a country, we could benefit so much from making the most of those things that people have learned, especially the ones who are wanting to come back and rebuild or give back in whatever way, because it may not be financially that they're giving you like cash money as a country, but the information that they now know, the ideas that they now know, it's invaluable things that, you know, there's no harm in listening and applying some of these things, because you can see it's worked in other places. These are the people that you're trying to attract to come back, right? Like for holidays and stuff, like, because now someone's in the diaspora, realistically, they've got the entire world to choose from to go and travel to for holiday, based on like the way that the financial situations are for most people who do live abroad. And so if you're wanting to kind of get those people to stand out, in the plethora of places, incredible places to go to, doesn't it make sense to kind of work the people who are aware of what attracts them? Because we post what we know attracts us.
Target audience. Yeah, essentially.
And so we are like, it makes sense if you want to, you can't be targeting just expats and our aunties and our mothers, because our aunties and our mothers want to go home. They're not.
Whereas we want to buy cocktails, we want to buy art, we're trying to buy
that selfie.
You know what I mean? Right. We want selfies, we want right.
This is it.
Money to spend. Yeah.
Exactly.
And so I just think it's really important for them to just, I think for the powers that be to really just embrace it, not to just be so like, we'll do our own version of it, because a lot of the time it just really falls flat. And it's just like, there's no harm in collaborating. And I don't know if it's because of like, I know like sometimes there's a bit of a resistance when it comes to working with young people, sometimes in Zim, sometimes. And that is such a silly stumbling block for them, like when you could really be elevating. Look at South Africa, look at how much, I mean, like SA is a country in itself. I don't always know, so I'm always like saying I'm really scared to go because I'm scared of something happening to me. But I'm like, in terms of like safety, I mean, Zim definitely is a lot more safer, you would say, in terms of like, if you're going as a traveler and like the likelihood of stuff kind of happening to you. But then, well, right next door to South Africa, people will still choose to go there. But because South Africa has marketed their country.
They've sold it.
Even despite the crime, you'd be like, but you know what?
I'll risk my life. I'll take the
responsibility, you know, like.
You know what's even funny about what you're saying is that South Africa actually advertised Victoria Falls as their own as well.
Yeah, they put it in like
like a package, like an SA package. Exactly. And it's like, how are we allowing like South African tourism companies to take that money or market something that is ours as themselves? And they've cracked the marketing game, and that's something we as a country are behind on.
They've moved to the times, which is that we haven't.
They've moved at the times where we are still stuck languishing.
Yeah, essentially, got it in one. I mean, it baffles me how they've taken something that isn't their own and they're making money off something that isn't their own when we could be doing exactly the same thing. There's no reason why South Africa should be marketing Victoria Falls. Like, we should be capable of marketing that. We should be capable of making the global world aware of Victoria Falls and everything that's within Zimbabwe. But I think they utilize a lot of young people. They've cracked the marketing game. I think they take marketing very, very seriously. We see it with all of their ads. They're entertaining, etc., etc. But I think that's something we as Zimbabweans haven't quite cracked.
Yeah, I think content is going to change. Well, let me put it this way: there's certain things that have to happen, but I think content is going to change the face of like everything in terms of the nation, how it's perceived, how people engage with it, especially with travel. I can't stress it enough. And
I think that's the beauty with like us taking things into our own hands as individuals and creating our own user-generated content is we don't need to rely on the same like jar praiser jingle that's been remixed and advertised.
And that's no shade. But that's no shade.
That's no shade. I love jar praiser. It's like a formula that whenever we're trying to market something, we have to remix
the same. Yeah, we love a jingle. We love a jingle out in Zimbabwe. But it's fair. I think in typical Zimbabwean spirit, when there's no way, we make a way, and you guys have done just that and been resourceful, and you guys continue to do so. So, thank you for chatting to me and taking the time to do so. You've said, just to kind of highlight, you've said, of course, investment will always be great to do the work you're doing. I think collaboration with the tourism board, I think, would be a useful tool, not cannibalizing, just collaborating. So everyone wins at the end of the day would be useful. Mm-hmm. And I think those two things, if I'm correctly, are big things that will be of value to you guys at this juncture. Cool. But thank you for indulging me, and of course the Zimbabwean Voices guests. We appreciate you both.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. I want to end this here, and we'll see how best we can help each other. Mm-hmm.
Ndokutsvaga uripi